Welcome to BeFM Drama, where we turn great works of English literature into gripping radio plays from our studio here in Busan. I'm your host, Joshua Cornwell, and today we're presenting part 4 in our 5-part adaptation of The Greek Interpreter, a classic Sherlock Holmes mystery. John Watson's curiosity about Sherlock Holmes' brilliant but lazy older brother Mycroft has caused the investigators to stumble into a bizarre and fascinating case. Mycroft Holmes has introduced Mr. Melas, a professional interpreter of Greek, who was abducted by a pair of threatening men and forced to help them interrogate a Greek prisoner that they'd been holding in a country house, threatening with pain and death if he would not sign papers handing over his fortune and the fortune of his sister to the two men. We all sat in silence for some little time after listening to the extraordinary tale of Mr. Melas. Then Sherlock looked over at his brother.
Have you taken any steps in this?
Mycroft picked up the Daily News, which was lying on the side table.
I encourage Mr. Melas to place an ad in all the daily papers. Anybody supplying any information to the whereabouts of a Greek gentleman named Paul Cratides from Athens, who's unable to speak English, will be rewarded. A similar reward paid to anyone giving information about a Greek lady whose first name is Sophie. We've received no answers so far.
Have you contacted the Greek legation?
I've inquired with them. They know nothing.
Have you sent a wire to the head of the Athens police then?
Oh, my dear brother, you've always had all the energy in the family. By all means, take the case up if you're interested, and let me know if you do any good.
Holmes rose from his chair and I stood with him.
Certainly. I'll let you know, and Mr. Melas as well.
My friend turned to face the interpreter.
In the meantime, Mr. Melas, I would certainly be on guard if I were you, for of course these men must know by the newspaper advertisements that you have betrayed them.
We walked out of the Diogenes Club together, and as we made our way back homeward in the direction of Baker Street, Holmes stopped at a telegraph office and sent off several messages.
You see, Watson, our evening has been by no means wasted. Some of my most interesting cases have come to me in this way through Mycroft. The problem, which we have just listened to, although there can be only one explanation, still offers some interesting distinguishing features.
You have hopes of solving it, then?
Well, knowing as much as we do, it will be a strange thing indeed if we fail to discover the rest. You must yourself have formed a theory that will explain the story we have just listened to.
In a vague way, yes.
What was your idea then?
It seems to me to be obvious that this Greek girl has been tricked into an elopement by the young Englishman named Harold Latimer.
Eloped from where?
Athens, maybe.
No, this young man could not speak a word of Greek. The lady could speak English fairly well. Inference, she had been in England for some time, but he has not been to Greece.
Well, then we will presume that she had come on a visit to England, and that this Harold persuaded her to run away with him.
That is more probable.
Then the brother, for that I fancy must be their relationship, came over from Greece to interfere. He unwisely put himself under the power of the young man and his older accomplice. They captured him and used violence against him in order to force him to sign some papers, handing over the girl's fortune, of which he might be a trustee. Catrides then refused to do so. In order to negotiate with him, they needed to get an interpreter, and so they forced themselves upon this Mr. Melas, having used another interpreter sometime earlier. The girl is not aware of what is happening to her brother, and found out only by accident when she came unexpectedly into the room.
Excellent, Watson. I really fancy that you are not far from the truth. You see that we hold all the cards, and we have only to fear some sudden act of violence on their part. If they give us time, we must have them.
But how can we find the house?
Well, if our understanding is correct and the girl's name is or was Sophie Cratides, we should have no difficulty tracking her. That's our only solid hope, because the brother is, of course, a complete stranger in England. It is clear to me that some time has passed since Harold Latimer established his relationship with the girl. Some weeks at least, because the brother in Greece had time to hear about it and sail across to England. If they have been living in the same place during this time, it is probable that we shall get some answers to Mycroft's newspaper advertisements.
We had reached our apartment in Baker Street while we were talking. Holmes climbed the stairs first, and when he opened the door to our rooms, he gave a small grunt of surprise. Looking over his shoulder, I was equally astonished to see his brother Mycroft sitting smoking in our armchair. He smiled blandly at our surprised faces.
Come in, Sherlock. Come in, sir. You don't expect such energy from me, do you, brother? But somehow this case attracts me.
How did you get here?
I passed you in a cab.
Has there been some new development?
I had an answer to my advertisements.
Ah.
Yes, it came just a few minutes after you left.
And the message, what was it?
Mycroft Holmes took out a sheet of paper.
Here it is, written with a J pen on royal cream paper by a middle-aged man with a weak constitution. Sir, he says, in answer to your advertisement of today's date, I wish to inform you that I know the young lady in question very well. If you care to visit me, I could provide you the details of her painful story. She is now living at the Myrtles in Beckenham. Yours faithfully, J. Davenport. He writes from Lower Brixton. Do you not think that we should drive to him now, Sherlock, and hear his story?
My dear Mycroft, the brother's life is more valuable than the sister's story. I think we should go to Scotland Yard at once for Inspector Gregson and then drive straight out to Beckenham. We know a man is being tortured to death and every moment now is vital if we are to save him.
Better pick up Mr. Melas on our way. We may need an interpreter.
Excellent. Send the servant for a four-wheeler and we shall be on our way at once.
He opened the table drawer as he spoke, and I saw him slip his revolver into his pocket. He noticed me looking at him.
Yes, Watson, I believe that from what we have heard, we are dealing with some very dangerous men.
It was almost dark before we found ourselves in Pall Mall at the apartments of Mr. Melas. A gentleman had just called for him, and he was gone.
Can you tell me where he went?
I don't know, sir. I only know that he drove away with a gentleman in a carriage.
Did this gentleman give a name?
No, sir.
He wasn't a tall, handsome, dark young man?
Oh, no, sir. He was a little gentleman with glasses, thin-faced, but very pleasant in his ways. He was laughing all the time that he was talking.
Come along, this grows serious.
The three of us rushed downstairs, jumped into a cab, and galloped off towards Scotland Yard.
These men have gotten hold of Melas again. He is a man without physical courage, as they are well aware from their experience the other night. This villain was able to terrorize him into submission instantly. No doubt they need his professional services again, but after using him, they may be inclined to punish him for what they'll regard as his treachery.
Our hope was that, by taking the train, we might get to Beckenham as soon or sooner than the carriage. On reaching Scotland Yard, however, it was more than an hour before we could get Inspector Gregson to comply with the legal formalities that would enable us to enter the house. It was 9:45 before we reached London Bridge, and 10:30 before the four of us jumped out of the train on the Beckenham platform. A carriage drive of half a mile brought us to the Myrtles, a large, dark house standing back from the road on its own grounds. Here we dismissed our cab and rushed together up the driveway. And with that, we've come to the end of our 4th episode in our 5-part adaptation of The Greek Interpreter by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. What has become of Mr. Melas and the captive Paul Cratides? And will Holmes and his brother Mycroft be able to bring Harold Latimer and his laughing accomplice to justice? Find out tomorrow as we present our final part in this 5-part adaptation of this classic Sherlock Holmes mystery by the great master, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. From our studio here in Busan, this is your host, Joshua Cornwell, signing off.